I'm not sure where I got to in the unraveling of the conceptual framework. So if I haven't finished, it's probably worth finishing, because as I see it, this information is so important. Like, if we don't have the information, we can't see the pleasure and pain as being the nature of life. We don't realize that it's our attitude to the pleasure of pain that is the problem, because everything is mashed up like a big mess of cotton thread with knots and everything, and and you don't know. And as the descriptions come in, over time we start seeing, oh yeah, that's that, and that's that, and that's that. We start becoming familiar with our internal landscape, and it starts organizing it in a way, or at least we become much more of an expert towards our internal system, and we can see what previously was a big mess. We can see it. So I think that I was speaking about the 5 forms of suffering, and had got on to worry and anxiety, expectation and attachment to outcomes as being forms of suffering based on the belief my happiness is to be found in outcomes, and that is an uncomfortableness that covers up the peace of mind that is available if that sort of thinking isn't clouding the system. And that expectation is about waiting for something to happen in the future, or wanting something to happen in the future with the idea that it will deliver something that it can never deliver, but we believe it can deliver, which is part of the error. So in the expectation we see there is the error that my happiness is to be found in the flow of life. So we've now spoken about the different forms of suffering. And we've seen the attitude on which they arise. We now need to look at that attitude and see if it is really an error or whether it's not an error. Because if we don't have the capacity to see it as an error, then the system will keep functioning as it always has, which is on the basis that this attitude is accurate. So why is the belief in personal doership an error? And why is attachment to outcome an error? And it's quite a simple explanation. I try and be direct with it. In brief, the belief in personal doership sees us as an entity that is insulated from life. It doesn't appreciate how we have come into existence. It doesn't appreciate that the body-mind organism is essentially a piece of hardware that then has a operating system and software uploaded into it. The body is a result of the very complex genetic blueprint that gets put in place when the sperm and the egg join. That's when the blueprint is in place, and the body then grows, impersonally grows. I didn't ever do any of the growing. I didn't have to, take time out of the day and control the growing. So the body grows according to the blueprint. And if there's something in the blueprint that says my thumb isn't going to grow, then I would be born without a thumb. And in the blueprint, it includes the color of my eyes, it includes how the brain is structured, it includes everything about the body-mind organism. And that genetic blueprint is continually growing through our whole life, growing and dying through the whole life, changing. But it changes according to its design. So at a certain point, cataracts, let's say, comes in to someone's eyes because of their blueprint. Now, it's not only because of the blueprint, because the blueprint never grows in isolation. It always grows in an environment, and the environment is one with the blueprint, one with the organism that is growing. So in each moment, the organism is a result of the genetic blueprint that is growing and the environment that affects the genetic blueprint. So what we divide up into genes and up-to-date conditioning is really one thing. But there are two influencing factors, broadly two: the genetic design and how the genetic design is impacted by the circumstance. So if the mother has an infection in her embryonic fluid, that is part of the environment in which the blueprint is growing, and that infection becomes one with the blueprint, however it happens to be. So it might mean that the baby's born blind, for example. The genetic blueprint originally wouldn't have resulted in blindness, but because of the circumstance, the blindness comes there. And it's no one's fault. It is just a result of the blueprint and the circumstance. And so when we're born, we find ourselves in every moment in life, not insulated from life, born to a certain set of parents, born in a certain religious or environment where a certain religion is predominant, where a certain political system is predominant. Our parents send us to a particular school, and our parents deliver new conditioning to us. The religious leaders deliver new conditioning to us moment after moment. Our school is delivering new conditioning to us moment after moment. Our friends delivering new conditioning to us moment after moment. And the new conditioning becomes part of our up-to-date conditioning, which is one with the genetic blueprint. So in each moment we are one way because of this immensely complex set of factors that in general fall under two categories: the genes and up-to-date conditioning. Now, when you look at it, we weren't in control of the genetic blueprint. We are a result of that. And we weren't in control of which family we were born to, which part of the world we were born to, which school we were sent to, which friends we made, which people were in the school, what teachers were in the school. And all of that stuff that we weren't in control of is what determines who we are in each moment. So whether we have a mind that is good at maths and not so good at English, or not so good at language, that is no one's doing, but it's there. We can't deny it. Someone can do great maths and not very good at creative stuff. And that's the fact. And so if we don't take it personally, we would say, look, I can tell you I am very good at maths and I'm not very good at art. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a result of my genes and up-to-date conditioning that I wasn't in control of. I am a result. I am not the creator, but I am what has been created. And I function according to how I have been created. And how I am created is continually changing, because life is continually delivering new conditioning. So, at the moment, I am not great at art. Doesn't mean that tomorrow I won't be better at art, because today someone might give me some tips that might become part of my up-to-date conditioning, and I find that actually my genetic structure supports the new tips, and I can draw something that I never thought I could draw before. Or someone is, very kind and says, look, let me tell you all about it, tells me all about it, and then when I try to do it, I still produce really bad art, because the combination will only be able to turn into one thing, and their goodwill about trying to make me a bit better artist, my motivation to be a better artist, may not result in me being a better artist. So after I try I say, actually this is rubbish. This is not good. It's not personal. It's like, this is not good. I'm not a good artist. And let's say you're not good at maths and you're not good at art. You say, I'm not good at maths and I'm not good at art. Say, I'm good at building things. And if you're not good at building things, you're not good at maths, you're not good at art, you say, actually, I'm not good at anything. Not, yes. But it's not personal. It's like, I've been created by life this way. What I am good at is recognizing that I'm not good at anything and it's not personal. And that person might say, and that I am really, really grateful for. If, however, they see, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this, and life has created the misunderstanding that is so typical in the way that we develop in life, then that person is going to feel like I am a complete failure, and that feeling of being a failure, which is a misinterpretation of how life works, a misinterpretation of who is responsible for that individual not being good at art, not being good at maths. No. That is a huge load of uncomfortableness, a huge load on suffering, on top of the poor skills in various areas. Whereas if someone has poor skills in this area and they have no suffering, they'll tell you, I have no problem. I feel light. And someone else would say, how can you shouldn't feel light because you haven't done anything in your life. What have you produced? And then that person, if they start believing the other, right? Oh, maybe I should be a certain way and I'm not. Then the suffering could come in. Right? And then their peace with themselves, their peace with life will get disturbed. Now that is because of the new conditioning in that moment from the other that says, you shouldn't be fine. You haven't done anything in your life. You've wasted your life. You should be ashamed of yourself. If that new conditioning becomes part of the up-to-date conditioning, the person might start to feel ashamed. If they're really lucky, they'll say, that's your view. What I can tell you is, I feel great. And I haven't produced anything. The person might say, I feel great, and because I feel great, I go into the world and I deliver an openness. I don't deliver resentment. I don't deliver blame. I don't deliver all of these egoic things. And I think that's a great contribution. So now not only do I feel great, but then we start to see, oh, I am lucky because I've been given this attitude that isn't making me feel like I need to be one thing or another. And that wasn't my doing, and I'm very grateful for that. And now I see that actually I'm not as much of an untalented human as I might have thought, because what I deliver into life is the absence of all of the hate and blame and shame and craving. And the truth is that very few of us have nothing to be pleased about in terms of what we have. It's just that our focus tends to be on the things we don't have. So often, if someone is not a good artist, they may well focus on that and feel bad about that instead of recognizing that they are good at something else. And that's because the deeply ingrained belief is, I need pleasure, 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 so the fact I'm good at that, well, I'm good at it, so I don't need to worry about that. I just need to look at all the stuff I'm not good at. So often we're trying to become a perfect human being instead of seeing the perfection. Anyway, I divert because really what I was talking about is, why is the belief in personal doership an error? And what I was describing, it's an error because the way we find ourselves in this moment is a result of two factors which we never had any control of: our genes and up-to-date conditioning. And so anything that comes out of my mouth is a result of who I am now, not my doing, definitely what is happening, but a result of factors beyond my control. And then I can see the other is exactly the same, a biological instrument that has been grown by life, that has grown up in a certain environment. The conditioning that was delivered moment after moment has become part of who they are. And they can't function differently. They can't be better or worse. They are as they are. That is the simple understanding that I'm not the doer. From a more holistic point of view, we can see that all of life is a happening, much bigger than just you and I, and we are part of it, and that all of life is happening exactly as it's happening, and that we can see all of life is a happening and no one's doing. And if we come to see life as a spontaneous arising in the moment, as a experience arising in consciousness, then from that perspective also we'll see life just is. I don't know where it came from. I don't know where this moment came from. Even the notion that it came from the Big Bang is not really verifiable in this moment. In this moment, I don't even know that I was born 46 years ago. All I know is this moment. And so from the perspective of life being seen as a spontaneous arising, we see that even the speaking, the actions of the body, the outcomes, good or bad, are part of that spontaneous arising in consciousness that is unfolding moment after moment after moment. So from very many different perspectives, the notion of I am not the doer can be affirmed. When we look at what the notion I am the doer is saying, it's saying I am insulated from life, I am independent and autonomous, and whatever I think, whatever I say, however I act, is because I, as this separate autonomous entity, choose to do this and not that. And that is a more effective way, in a way, to just be left with non-doership, because at some point you say, absolutely not. How can I possibly choose when, and we see that something happens in the circumstance, and our response, our reaction, how we biologically feel about it, is given to us. We find out about it after whatever has happened in the circumstance affects the body-mind organism. That's when we know how we feel about it, not before. We don't stop and say, how shall I feel about this? We feel about it as a result of the body-mind organism functioning. And if we see this, the other notion that says, I am a doer, I am a separate, insulated, meaning I've never been influenced by life. Whatever I decide is not a result of being influenced, not a result of being connected to life, but as a result of me being a separate, independent, autonomous entity that is in complete control. Now, at some point, that's how people live. That's the self-identity that life has generally puts in place. The evolution of life, once we are conceived and then born, is an evolution such that the ego at about age 2 or 3 sets in. That's when the idea of me and mine kicks in, and that's when the tantrums start happening. When you take the toy off the baby, it's, no, that's mine, give it back to me. Don't take what is mine. And that is where the belief in personal doership and attachment to outcome has formed. And the baby, the child, then starts referring to them not as in the third person, which they did before, but rather, oh, I am Roger. Yeah, I am Roger, and I do this, and this is mine. So it gets put in place. When we really look at it objectively and see what it means, that idea is that I am in control of who I am. I am in control of whether I have good art skills or not. I am in control whether I have good math skills or not. I am in control whether I have a short temper or I'm very patient. It's a form of insanity. But it's an insanity that life has embedded into us. And through spiritual seeking, life is undoing the insanity, such that more peace and less suffering kicks in. The other attitude of attachment to outcome. How can we verify whether that is right or wrong? Whether it is misguided or an error? And it's simple. We have a whole lifetime of experience whereby we have been seeking pleasure, thinking that it will deliver continuous happiness. Once I get this, I'm sure many of us, everyone has prayed, God, even if I don't believe there's a God, at some point they've said, God, just this one thing. This one thing, please give me this. It is so important to me. If you give me this, then I will be your servant forever. Why are we saying that? Because we really believe that thing is going to give us something lasting and ongoing, is going to give us a sense of a removal of the uncomfortableness that we have in that moment. And that uncomfortableness in that moment is because of attachment to that thing. So we say, please God, if you give me this, my life will be fine, and then I'll dedicate myself to you.